to work in spotty bikinis and sparkly high-heeled shoes. Each day she gets up when the sun's still in bed to decide which clothes she should choose. Her wardrobe is massive, it's tall.
Welcome to Izziwizzi Kids Play TV episode number 24, where you may otherwise know us as the interactive internet TV show where we're changing the world of toys and play together. I'm your host today, Al Boxall-Gordon, and this week for our Valentine's special we have a special guest for you, Conrad Burdekin. Conrad is a friend, poet and author of the tremendously entertaining book, The Hungrumptious Glump. Bit of a mouthful. So what have we got in store for you this week? Well, Conrad has already been heavily involved in our Playfest this week over on Twitter and on Facebook on Tuesday and Thursday evening. We've had some fun, rhyming fun and giving away loads of copies of this book. So it's been great. Good fun over there. So if you missed that, make sure you join in next week. So for this episode, we're taking this all a step further, and we're absolutely delighted to be giving away more copies of The Hungrumptious Glump on today's show. And Conrad is also going to give some insights into poetry and how it benefits your children. So, what can be better at this time of year? Valentine's Day.
Yeah, we'll do some Valentine's poetry.
Poems. So Conrad's also very big in the community, supporting children in schools, and has part of what he does is create games and help children to grasp poetry in a really fun and entertaining way. So I've asked Conrad along to share some of these games with you so that he can stimulate that inner poet in you and your child. So over to Conrad.
Thank you, and that's what I'm going to do. And it was funny, just before we started filming this episode, Alison told me that she wasn't much of a poet, and then showed me a brilliant poem that she'd written. So I think you can get that on. Can you get that on your computer, Alison? I'm not sure.
If you do a search on izziwizzikids.co.uk,
then you can find it.
Search for poem,
and you can find Alison's brilliant poem. I loved it. So that's right. I go into schools, primary schools and nurseries, to do poetry with children, and I'd like to start off this session by reading a poem that I read often to children about poetry, because I think that poetry can really help children develop the language and also just have a lot of fun. More than anything, I want kids to have fun. So this is a poem called Poetry is Wow, and then we'll move on and do a bit of Valentine's poetry and a few other things. So here we go. Poetry is wow. Poetry is wow. Poetry is wild. Poetry releases your creative inner child. Poetry is whoosh. Poetry is bing. Poems flip your heart around and make you want to sing. Poetry is great. Poetry is cool. Poems can be written by any kid in school. Poetry is swish. Poetry is swash. Poetry is yummy food for your brain to nosh. Poetry smiles, poetry grins, poetry laughs and gives you feathered wings. Poetry is mega, poetry is ace, poetry is found all over the place. Poetry should not cause you concern. Poetry is easy, it takes no time to learn. Don't wait any longer, give poetry a go. Just use your pen to write some and let the poems flow. So we're going to let some poems flow, if you're ready, Alison.
That's brilliant.
You ready for that now?
Yeah, ready.
Obviously, if you've got children like mine who are 4, 2 and 1, they're not going to be writing so much poetry. But I really do think they can benefit a lot from it. My kids love having a look at this. They know from all the pictures which poems what. And every now and then I hear Violet or Alice, one of my 2 eldest, reading lines out to each other that they've memorised, and I just think it really must benefit what they're doing. So it's Valentine's Day, so let's start with a bit of Valentine's Day poetry. Alison, if you think of Valentine's Day, what do you think of? What springs to mind for Valentine's Day?
Roses.
Roses, of course, we've got roses. What else do you think of?
Chocolate.
Chocolate, and do you get lots of big smooches from your husband?
Maybe.
maybe a kiss.
A card.
Oh, and a card. Any big teddies or anything garish like that? No, okay. Well, I was thinking about Valentine's and I was thinking about all these things, and that's really how you start a poem. You just start thinking about all the things that you want to put into a poem. So I was thinking of more really from a child's point of view, slobbery kisses and smooches, maybe all the pet names that mum and dad use when they don't think you're listening, or if they're trying to embarrass you when they do think you're listening, boxes of chocolates, all these sorts of things. And I like to think as if I'm a child, because I'm writing for children. And I used to hate it on Valentine's Day. I couldn't stand it. My dad would come in and give my mum a big slobbery kiss, and I just wanted to run away, climb under the table. So I was trying to think of all the things that kids really might be embarrassed about at Valentine's Day. And so I put all them into a poem, and I came up with Valentine's Day Yuck, which is really what I used to think of it. So here we go. Smooches and kisses and slobbery smackers. It's now official. Mum and dad have gone crackers. Slimy wet snogs and pecks on the cheek. It's grossing me out. They've been like this all week. I love you, my snuggles, my schnookums, says dad. Mum blushes and I know for sure they've gone mad. Pucker up, love. Dad moves in for the kill. My parents lock lips. I start to feel ill. Flowers for breakfast, chocolates for tea, nothing but soppy films on the TV. Cards through the door and fluffy pink teddies. It's putting me right off my bowl full of shreddies. Huggles and cuddles, long walks hand in hand. Where are my real mum and dad, I demand? And what do they say to explain all of this? It's Valentine's Day. Come here for a kiss. So that's really how I put it all together for a Valentine's Day poem. But I have found working in schools, rhyming things actually can be quite difficult, and you don't need to rhyme them. If we took some of these things out of my poem, like for example, slimy wet snogs, put that on a line as a line. Smooches and kisses might be another line. Do you like chocolates, Alison? When James buys you chocolates, yeah. So you might call them delicious chocolates or scrummy chocolates or whatever, really. And if you start to list a few of them in a line, pretty soon you're going to end up with a Valentine's Day poem.
Right, okay.
And the older you are, then obviously if you've got children who might be 8, 9, 10, they might come up with something a bit more sophisticated. Maybe they'll start trying to rhyme it. Maybe you could take a few of my verses and change it a bit. So that verse where Dad was saying, I love you, my snuggles, my schnookums, says Dad. Mum blushes and I know for sure they've gone mad. Put in some different pet names. Cutie Pie, my cuddly teddy bear, or whatever. But leave the rest of it and you've got a rhyming verse that your child can go and read to your dad, to your husband, your wife, and I'm sure it will make them laugh.
We'll post Conrad's poem on the website as well, so that you've got access to that. You don't have to remember.
No, you don't have to keep rewinding that, and you can take bits and you know, really put in a few of your own words, and then you've got a poem that you've come up with yourself. Shall we do some Roses Are Red ones?
That'd be brilliant, yeah.
Well, I'm quite sure everyone knows roses are red, violets are blue, and all that kind of thing. Well, I've decided to change it a bit, so we're keeping the roses are red, but then we're going to change all the other bits. For example, and this might be what one of your children like to write to you. Roses are red, grass is green. You're the best mum I've ever seen. Oh, wouldn't that be lovely? Imagine getting that. You don't think that was well, maybe you're the most annoying mum I've ever seen.
Either that or there'll be something rude in there.
Oh, something rude. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. What about another lovely one for mum? Roses are red, violets are blue. Happy Valentine's, Mum, this poem's for you. And I suppose if people are going to rhyme blue with something rude, they won't have much difficulty coming up with something else. But that's really the point.
If you want it to head in that direction.
Absolutely, you can guide that, and as long as you're having fun and the short little things, and your children will be able to remember. If you come up with one together, and I'm sure everyone watching this will be able to come up with some short little ones like this. And you can kind of do crazy stuff. You can talk about fridges. How about roses are red, fridges are white? Kisses from you are sometimes alright.
That's not like it.
Yeah, you know, the kids might not like it, they might think, oh, kisses.
Yeah.
And you can totally write fun ones. Dads can do it and switch it or mums can do it and switch it so you're writing about how brilliant your dad is. Maybe you want to talk about your mad dad, or absolutely up to you. You can come up with any like that. So yeah, you could have a go just doing a 4-line poem.
Yeah. Start
it Roses Are Red, and I think we're going to do a competition about that.
Yeah, we'll come on to that in a minute. Just struck something. A game we used to play when we were kids, and that was we'd say a word, and then the other one would have to say a word that rhymes with it, and then next one say a word, and then you'd rhyme that word back. And I was just thinking that kind of game would be quite good for coming up with ideas for a poem.
Very good.
To throw them words down and see what comes out.
Absolutely. So, for example, snog would rhyme with. Makes me want to put my head in there.
That kind of thing,
Exactly.
All the stuff is love, isn't it?
And you can start poems like that, thinking of the rhyme, and then the poem comes a bit later, and you can build it around there.
So do you want to run through our competition then? For this,
yes, here's the competition. First line, Roses Are Red, and then we'd like you to come up with any 4-line poem starting Roses Are Red. I'll be judging it, I think, Alice.
Yeah, what we'd like you to do is to put your poems on the comments just below this video. So whether on YouTube or on the website, put your comments your poem in the comments section. So you need to log in and just put that there, and then Conrad will be judging those poems that come in. The closing date for the competition is the 28th of February, and we are giving away how many copies of your book?
What do you think's a good number? Maybe about 5 or something
we'll
like
give
that?
away 5 copies of Conrad's The Hungruntious Blunt.
And I'll sign it as well, and I'll write it to your kids, and
that's brilliant.
Do your little message in there.
That'd be great. So get your poems coming in, and as I say, the closing date for that is the 28th of February, and you can find more details over at www.izziwizzikids.co.uk/poem.
Excellent. Right then. Well, let's do a few more ideas for some more poems. So now you've got your 4-line poem, or several 4-line poems. Maybe you've had a bit of a play with your Valentine's Day yuck that you do with your kids. Now I'm going to do one. Sometimes I write slightly more, if you like, serious poems, but I even think you can turn serious ones quite funny. This particular poem, it's not specifically Valentine's, but it is to do with love. And I wrote this just before my second daughter was born. So we'd been for the scan, the 20-week scan, and we brought the scan home, and I was looking at it, and I just felt all this love inside me for this unborn child. And so I started thinking and trying to put into words how I was feeling. And I'm going to read this poem to you and then explain how you might come up with something similar, but we'll put a bit of a fun twist on it. So, this is to Violet, my middle child. Here we go. My love for you will be as loud as a steam train puffing out smoke, as fizzy as a can of effervescent Coke, as full as a life of extravagant joy, as happy as a toddler with a brand new toy, as tall as a mountain capped with snow, as beautiful as legends from long ago, as high as a pair of soaring eagles, as deft and as sure as a surgeon's needle, as exciting as a letter that has just been sent, as long as a journey that never ends, as magical as bells on Santa's sleigh, as pure as a child kneeling down to pray, as sweet as the sound of a chick's first cheep, as calm as a deer when she's settling to sleep, as huge as the moon beaming down at earth, as proud as parents at the baby's birth, as constant as the oceans that will never run dry, as bright as stardust in a night-filled sky, as crisp and as clear as a winter's morn, as much when you're old as the day you're born. Now, some people might want to do a love poem like that on Valentine's Day. Maybe you and your son or your daughter want to write one to their mum or to the dad or the gran or the granddad. And it's really, really easy, because all you need to do is start off with "my love for you is," and then you just come up with lots of words. As exciting as loud as full as happy as. So if we're thinking about something exciting, what comes to mind, Alison? Something exciting, something that might excite you, make you, you know. Or maybe your kids. What do your kids get excited about? What does Alex like? Is it like Ben 10? Is he into Ben 10 or?
Yeah, I think.
Or pirates? He likes pirates, doesn't he?
Yeah,
okay then.
Really
so he might have something like being on a pirate adventure. So.
Yeah, that's Captain Hook.
Right, as exciting as sailing with Captain Hook or something like that.
Things like that you could bring into.
Absolutely. As amazing as the crocodile snapping his jaws or something like that. My wife loves chocolate, so
every wife loves chocolate.
she might say something like as exciting as an unopened bar of dairy milk or something like that, ready to scoff that. Okay, so then you can just carry on like that. You might say your love is as huge as a snow-capped mountain towering in the sky or something like that, if you're trying to be a bit more poetic and that. But you might also have kids who don't really want to do a more serious one like that. So instead of writing a poem to your mum or your dad or your wife or your husband or your gran or your granddad, why not go for what you really love best? For example, your PlayStation. Maybe you could do a love poem to your PlayStation.
Yeah, or your cat or...
To your cat, there you go, to your cat or your favourite teddy, yeah. My love for you is, oh goodness, as sweet as 1,000 chocolates bought from the shop, or you just write this love poem to your PlayStation or to your cat or to your dog or anything you can think of, really. I've done this in schools and children have come up with all sorts. The best friends sometimes want to do it too. So lots of stuff in there, I'm sure, that you could do a bit of a list poem, because you really are just writing a list and coming up with it.
Building on that.
Absolutely. Right, shall we do one that isn't about Valentine's? Is that okay?
Yeah, you can do, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Right then. We're going to do one now, all about, and this is one that children really do seem to like, because sometimes people struggle for ideas. It just, when you ask them, what's your idea for this, and you can just see them a bit blank and they're not sure. And while you're watching this, a lot of the viewers might be thinking, well, I don't know if I could come up with ideas for poems.
Yeah.
Well, I honestly believe anyone can come up with ideas for poems. And this poem came from, I think, a Year 3 boy saying to me, well, I don't know what to write about, I've got no idea. So I said to him, you can write about anything. And he said, well, like what? What can I write about? And that really led to this poem. So I'm going to read this out.
This is out of your book?
This one is out of the Hungrumptious Blumph. It's on page 58.
We're not
the hymn will be.
Everybody turns pages.
Okay, this is simply called What Can I Write About? You can write about dogs chasing terrified cats. You can write about ducks wearing bright woolly hats. You can write about snakes that rattle and hiss. You can write about cows eating packets of crisps. You can write about pirates sailing the seas. You can write about rainbows climbing up trees. You can write about tickling a purple balloon. You can write about teachers who fly to the moon. You can write about mums. You can write about dads. You can write about grands and wrinkly granddads. You can write about hamsters with cute furry faces. You can write about doors that lead to strange places. You can write about painting a tortoise bright red. You can write about jumping on top of your bed. You can write about houses full of pitch black. You can write about beanstalks and young boys called Jack. You can write about pixies with sharp pointy ears. You can write about princesses captured for years. You can write what you like, just write till you're done. And make sure, most of all, when you write, you have fun. And it's very easy to have fun with this one, because all you need to write about, let me just find out where it is first, here we are. All you need to do is start, you can write about, and then say to your child, what can you write about? I could write about you, Mum. I'll write about you. Right, you can write about mums who fly to where? Where can Mum fly to? Where would you like to fly
Space,
to?
yeah.
Who can fly to space? Yeah, you can write about mums who fly to space. You can write about dads pulling a silly face.
Yeah.
Dads are good at pulling silly faces.
This is quite interesting actually, because just talking about writing and sitting down and writing,
Yeah.
is that we don't write anymore.
No, we don't.
We don't write.
We don't.
And it's naturally go to bed and read a story. It's very
Yeah.
easy to fit into routines, but to
Yeah.
actually sit down and write, it does seem
yeah.
like it takes extra effort. So this is a really good way, I think.
Well, I think it's a great way to get kids doing a bit more writing, but it's also very easy, because you've got, if you get hold of that poem, you've kind of got it there for you. You just need to change a few words. So, and you just rhyme a few of the words at the end. So I don't know, what else could we write about? You could write about jumping somewhere on a trampoline up to the moon. You could write about carrying 1,000 balloons, or kids will come up with all sorts. They'll have green aliens coming from Mars.
Yeah, you can just let your imagination.
Absolutely. And really, it doesn't matter if the rhymes are quite like not related necessarily, because it's just different things you can rhyme about. So Mars might rhyme with cars. You can write about driving the fastest sports car, or it doesn't matter. But kids, they will come up with loads. And if you build a poem together with your child, they will be proud of it. They will be so chuffed.
Yeah.
And you know, they might want to take it to school and read it out to their friends, and they might want to put it on the fridge or whatever, really. Spoons dancing on ice was one I thought of. Cats chasing terrified mice. We have the cats and the dogs chasing each other. There's just all sorts that you can do there, really. Doing cartwheels, slippery seals, horrible eels. You can just go forever and ever with that one.
Yeah. I was just going to say as well, something I really loved about Conrad's book was that it was so easy for Alex, my 6-year-old, to pick up and read independently, which I think is really... Well, the amount of times I've stood in bookshops thinking, can you read this, can you read this? And it all said, overwhelming, is there enough pictures and this sort of thing. It's lovely big pictures in there on every page, and they're funny pictures, so they really engage them into the book. But the words are so easy for them to pick up, and there's new words in there as well that he's learning. But as well as that, his sisters, we've got Lily May, who's 4, and Emily, that's 3, and he will sit and read to them as well.
Really? Does he do that? That's lovely, that's great.
And they just find it really funny, and then they come up with silly words and things like that. It always ends up silly, but
naturally.
But I just thought, this is such an inspiration, really, for kids, and so definitely one to would recommend. But the other thing is that during the Playfest as well, we've asked a number of people to put themselves forward to review Conrad's book as well. So you'll see some video reviews coming onto Izziwizzi Kids as well over the next few weeks. Cool. So look out for those reviews as well. So,
and what you were saying about Alex being 6, I take these into schools right across Yorkshire, and I've sold to children as young as 2 even, I think. Right up to top end primary school, sort of 11, 12-year-olds I've had wanting my book. And when I wrote it with all that market in mind. Because you get lots of books that are poems for 7-year-olds or stories for 7-year-olds. And if you're 8, then you don't really want to read that. And if you're 6, you think it might be a bit hard. So this one really was trying to hit that whole audience so that the young ones could read the ones that are appropriate for them, and then later on read the ones that might be for slightly older. And it sounds like it's going well, and Alex is
really,
good to go. Good stuff.
So is that, have you covered everything?
I think so. I think that's me done.
Right, well, brilliant, Conrad. Thank you very much
for
those insights.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.
So then that's the end of another episode of Izziwizzi Kids Play TV. I'm Al Boxall-Gordon, and together we're changing the world of toys and play.
Izziwizzi Kids, hooray!
Hey!